Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Yoyo, and I have a special guest with me tonight. My good friend Ruben. Uh, that's Ruben right there.
What's up, y'all?
Um, we will be talking about something that I've mentioned before, and me and Ruben have talked about a lot. Going back and forth about it, and it's about the church and how we should we speak up and should we step up to the authority, figures that are in there. And I know a lot of people hear that and they're like, what do you mean step up to them? I mean it in the most diplomatic way, most professional way where, you have to, figure out a way to speak and voice your opinions to them because sometimes they don't understand what's going on. So the name of this podcast today is going to be called Church Over Me, Myself, and I, which when I say that, I mean like a lot of us when we are in church and we pertain to a certain religious group, uh we always put that religion or in this case this church in front of us, in front of our needs, in front of our families and stuff like that. And for me, I think that that is very harmful for oneself overall. But the thing that hurts the most is when you don't speak. I actually just saw a post today that God, I was just like, it's crazy how, I wanted to talk about this tonight. And, this came up and it said the world suffers a lot, not because the violence of bad people, but the silence of the good people.
Mm,
And you could just tell right off the bat that that's 100% accurate, that it's not
hmm
necessarily like the actions of these bad people or these evil people, that we see um come and go from church, all the time. It's the silence of the people who have been hurt and the silence of the people who are too scared to talk. And I'm not trying to attack anybody, right? So like I want to start off by saying I am not perfect. Ruben, definitely not perfect. None of us are
not
perfect, right?
at all.
We are doing this to speak out on our behalf, but also to make aware to certain things, for everybody who's listening to this. Because I know I have friends that, are still in ministry and stuff like that. And I hope you guys can take something from this. If you're a pastor, if you're a minister, if you're any kind of leadership in church, you have the power to make things better. So I everything that I address tonight, I hope you guys take to heart. Me and Ruben are going to be talking about some topics that may seem a little difficult, but again, I'm not trying to attack any church. I'm not trying to attack any individual church organization, religious organization. I'm speaking on behalf of the people who are too afraid or they need answers. And I have questions that I still haven't answered myself, and a lot of the questions that I have led me to, push away religious thoughts, and I don't think it's a bad thing because, like I said in my first podcast, that I feel free now. I feel free to be able to seek God differently without certain limitations that uh, every church has rules, right? And they have a
Right.
limitation to what you can learn. So that's what I want to talk about tonight, about you stepping up. How can you do it? And I'm only going to be addressing certain questions that I have been asked or I have asked myself, and Ruben, he will help me answer these questions, but he has questions too, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like a therapy session that we're going to do today, so we're not therapists, we're not
Not at
psychologists,
all.
but but we're really good friends, and I think we've built a good relationship, as friends and almost as brothers. I could, hopefully I could just say that like that, but
Of course, man. Yeah, for sure.
we have been able to understand each other's perspectives. Like, Ruben is still a church member, he still goes to church and stuff like that, and I know why he does it, and I know why I don't do it anymore, you know so but there was another quote that I wanted to, I have it written. It's if you ask the proper questions long enough, the answers begin to find their ways to you. And it's crazy because the more I still have these questions. It's not like I just left a religion and that's it. I'm free and I'm never gonna think about it. I think about it every day. I think about the struggle that I was in and the freedom I have now. But there is a void, that's always gonna be inside you. But we have to stop filling it with ideals, like religious ideas and idols that they put in front of us. We have to fill it with something else. And a lot of people like to put church or religion to fill that spot. And like I said before, like they stop believing in God and they put their trust in the religion over anything else. And I do have a problem with that. And
Yeah.
sometimes we have our eyes closed or bandaged up because we can't, it's too hard to see the reality of things. But I hope this can help a lot of people. If you want to share, like this, or comment, give us your thoughts. I'm not here to attack anybody. I'm just here to speak out and see if I could address some of these issues that we're still having to this day. Like in the past, I'm sure it was easier to hide. I'm sure it was easier to navigate away from these questions and just say, just because God wanted to. That's not enough. I think we serve, a different type of God. you know like, I don't think it's the God that we have been accustomed to. I think we're making God accustomed to our needs, and I don't like that. And this is not only one religion, it's many religions. And today I'm just going to be talking mostly about Christianity, because I come from Christianity,
Yeah,
right?
that's where we've grown up. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have our biases to, the way we grew up, right? Because like our families probably look at, church differently than we do. And I think that's the biggest problem, the indifference that we have, and we don't speak up. We don't say it out loud because we're too scared, right? So I'm only going to be answering questions that I have asked or have been asked to me, based on my perspectives and my opinion. So I want to make that clear, okay? And
Right.
and Ruben will be doing the same. It's not like we're here to debate who's right and wrong. We can pull up scripture, of course, that's the easiest. But I'm not gonna try. I'm gonna try not to be like, oh, let's pull up this scripture here and how it talks about this and that. And I'm not here to attack anybody who feels like they're a sinner or they feel like they've been ostracized or whatever they may be. Okay. So let's just get into it.
Let's get into it, bro.
When I see something, right, should I say something or should we let it go? And this is one of those situations where, like, if it doesn't involve me and doesn't hurt me, I don't care. And we got to stop. As Christian family congregations and stuff like that, we have to stop. We have to, even if it doesn't involve us. I'm not trying to say like be nosy about it. I'm saying sometimes you have to address certain things, and I think the time to do it is now. What do you
Right.
think, Ruben, when it comes to like certain situations? Like,
I mean, it's a very sticky situation, man, because um obviously you're right. It's like we've kind of grown up um looking at it like, well, it's not my business. I'm not really, it's not my fight, it's not my business. And sometimes you might want to get involved and maybe that person doesn't want you to get involved. Maybe, something's going on with somebody and you don't really want it to for somebody else to be involved with it. It's like, dude, that's my fight. I don't need you fighting my battles for me. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So it's a tricky situation, man. Like you need to really know when it's okay to speak up and when it's not to. But I think we've been accustomed to, let's leave that to the side for a second. We've been always raised not only from a church standpoint, but from a cultural standpoint,
mm-hmm.
you respect your elders.
Yeah,
You don't disagree with your elders. You don't talk back to your elders. You respect them. And I mean, wholeheartedly agree, but that doesn't mean that we can't disagree on something. And that's when we need to be wise that when we do speak up, you speak up in a proper way. There's nothing that says that you can't speak up to your authorities and to your leaders, but obviously you can't go in there just, cussing up a storm and pretending like you're going to fight somebody. And it's like,
that's me all the
whoa,
way.
bro, that's a lot of people. I mean, I have a friend who I've always had to sort of be like that person for him that's like, yo, calm down for a second, like let's, because he'll go in there guns blazing like and
Yeah,
I'm just like, bro, let's calm down for a second, let's speak our minds,
yeah.
let's calm down for a second, you know what I mean? So I would say when it comes, if it's somebody else's situation, I mean, if it's not something illegal, like if it's illegal,
Mm-hmm.
then I say you have a responsibility to speak up, man,
Exactly.
regardless. But if it's something that's just like, oh man, that's not right, like if you hear an authority figure like a leader, bashing another member, or or you're in like a youth group or something. Let's just put an example, right? You're in a youth group or something, and you see your youth president, and you're all talking together with somebody, and then that person leaves, and they're like, dude, I hate that guy. you know those are the kinds of things that I to me, I'm like, you need to speak up and be like, bro, that's not the what a leader should be. Like, just
Mm-hmm.
because you don't like somebody, you're still their leader. You need to find out how to reach this person, how to
Exactly.
be able to lead this person, because you're not going to like all your leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all your people that that you are leading, you're not going to like all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that you don't love them and you don't want the best for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you definitely speak up, but I feel like in certain situations, if it's not your fight, sometimes you kind of need to go to that person and be like, yo, I want to help you out, I want to stand up for you, but what do you think?
Yeah.
And if they're like, dude, I need help,
Yeah.
definitely, please do it. But if you don't, and that's the other part of the coin, bro, that there's a lot of times that, like, that you've been there, I know
Mm-hmm.
I've been there, when you're gonna have some kind of leadership meeting or something, and then people are like, yeah, and we got your back, we're speak up, and we got you. Then you speak up and you look around, and it's like, anybody? And
Mm-hmm.
everybody's like, oh, nah, I'm
Never mind.
good, I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And it's like, bro, you just let me hang it.
I know, man. Like I know exactly what I'm gonna touch base on that. Like I've actually faced that in my leadership. Again, I was, for those who know me, they know I was, with the youth group, right? And there were certain leaders that I know didn't want me to be their leader. And that was okay with me. If anything, I wanted to win them over with honesty and respect rather
Right.
than scare them and make them fear me.
Yeah.
And whatever they asked for me, I gave. If like they asked for me to show up one day or at a service or something, I would do it. I would never ask for anybody to give me money. An offering is an offering. But
Right.
I never, even if they didn't have the money, I'm like, no, don't worry about it. It's like me giving it back to the church. If I could help you guys some way, if I could help you promote an event or something, I'm here for it.
Of
But
course.
I'm not gonna attack a person who doesn't like me. I am gonna talk some trash if they talk trash to me, you know,
Sure, of
of
course.
course, but I am gonna say something. Eventually we're gonna have to talk it out. And I do 100% agree that if you have some kind of beef with somebody, you definitely have to, address it. You have to
Yes.
address it, because and then it starts to be like this toxic thing that you start talking bad about everybody, and then you give it to
Right.
somebody else who's like behind you following you,
Yep,
or
yep,
looks
yep.
up to your opinions and your views, and they start thinking the same way, and they don't even know the person.
Right.
And I know I've been guilty of doing that, and I'm sure a lot of us have,
We're
but
all guilty of it.
I think um where I was leading to with if you should or you shouldn't, it has to deal with a lot of the effect
Yeah.
of what it would happen if you say certain things or if you do certain things. Like, yes, if it's illegal, definitely somebody's gonna have to address it sooner or later, because if you don't, then it's kind of like you're cooperating with them. It's like,
Yeah.
you're
You're guilty, like, by
by
association, sort
association.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like I think you should look at it in the overall effects of the people who are involved, yourself being involved, your family and people around you. Some would say to pray, right? And
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not against prayer. Okay, I could still talk to God, and you call it prayer, you could call it meditation. But I do think you have to think about the gravity of what you may say or what you may do, whether it's an action, that you move forward with, or just a thought, an idea. You definitely have to voice your opinions, right? So
Right.
I'm a this is going to lead up to another question, but I think that you should talk about your concerns to your pastor, or some leader that you're close to and you think you can trust, in the situation. If it's one of those situations that you don't feel you can trust either, or try to go to the higher up. But that's where it gets very complicated, because again, I'll talk about that later on. But
Right.
when the hierarchy, you start going up the hierarchy, there's like importance level. It's like, is
Yeah.
it really important for me to hear this person and stuff like that? And that's where the leaders that are on top of the pastors, like the elders, and then the leaders of each whatever they may be, the elders of the elders of the elders, whatever they may be, whoever may be helping running the organization, the branch that you're in, right?
Yeah.
uh Sometimes it gets to that point where you're like, well, I can only talk to this guy because this guy, he's out of my league and he's too busy doing other things, and it's
Right.
understandable. For me, is that if nothing changes in the situation that you try to address in a political sense, in a more diplomatic, calm, more, like, Ruben was saying, like he was that for his friend, he was that person to help him calm down. And for me, I have a friend who always helped me, see, I would always voice my opinions to my friend because I know after I told him, he would like tell me what to say, but in a calmer sense. It's basically what I
Right.
said, but not angry. So I know
Yeah.
it's the same thing for Ruben. Ruben is a friend. Okay, it's like we changed roles right here,
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
so, but yeah, like
You had your own Ruben.
yeah, basically, I have my own Ruben, to this
Yes.
day,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I have Ruben, so it's just like a double, it's pretty cool. But yeah, like if nothing changes, I do say you should probably think about leaving, leave to another church, right? And if don't stay where the problem is and is being
Right.
consistent. Like if you have the possibility to move, and I know not everybody can just move to another church randomly because sometimes the churches are way too far apart, but sometimes you have to look at the denomination that you're in, be like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I might have to you have to compromise certain things if you want to feel better. And that's another thing about Christianity, that it's always who knows what and who's the real Christians here. And
Right. Yeah.
I don't think that's how it should work. You guys were all, if we go according to what you have learned and been taught, each one of you have been revealed a certain version of what you read in scripture, right?
Right.
Is it all correct? Probably not. I can debate about it for hours, for years, for
For years.
lifetimes, for generations. And I'm sure
Yes.
that's what's been happening, because there's so many denominations of Christianity that's like, just pick one,
And they're never gonna agree.
and they're never going to agree. But I do say that you need to move forward with your life and everything. And what's called it, you have to address the problem as it is and look at what may be causing the problem. And if it's you kind of got to work on yourself, because a lot of people don't like to say that the problem is oneself. They like to blame whoever's the next person there. They like to blame whoever's nearby, be like, well, you helped me in this and it's your fault. Sometimes that is true, but that is not always the case. You can't
Right.
go around blaming the whole world. Excuse me. You can't go around blaming the whole world for your faults,
Right.
but you can't blame other people for the faults of other people as well, because there's certain people that deserve certain faults and stuff like that. And I do think that leaders need to start addressing this situation. If they know something, they should say something and try to address it the most diplomatic way possible. That's the first question, right? I don't know if you want to add
Yeah,
anything
no,
onto that one.
I do, because I think, man, like, not to get comic booky. That's a different podcast. I can go watch it.
Yeah, yeah,
Darth
I'm
Bad
gonna
Pod.
leave it on the link too.
Death. Darth Bad Pod.
Yeah,
But with great power comes great responsibility.
very true.
And
Amen.
I know, right? There was a prophet once named Ben Parker who said,
Yeah, the
with great
prophet Ben
power
Paul.
well, or Aunt May,
Yeah,
whoever you think said it,
yeah. In
but
whatever
but
universe you live in.
whatever universe you're in, yeah, whatever earth you're in.
Mhm.
But it's so true, man. Like, as a leader, you have such great responsibility, dude. As a pastor, as a minister, as a youth leader, as a worship leader, you have a lot of responsibility, because there are people that are you are serving as a leader, that they are looking up to you for guidance,
Mhm.
right? And the things you say, the things that you do are going to affect people. So,
Yeah.
one, yeah, you should definitely listen to the people that you are leading when they
Mhm.
tell you something, when they say, hey man, something's going on here. We got to let go of ego. We have to
Yeah.
remember that we are serving these people.
Mhm.
So we have to let go of ego and be able to say, wow, okay, let me figure this out, because maybe I am the problem. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like you said, okay, let's reverse it, right? The leader's doing his job, everybody seems happy here, but you're the only one that has an issue with something.
Mhm.
Hmm. Now let's take a look at ourselves. Well, maybe, am I the problem?
Yeah.
Am I the one that is the only one kind of like looking at things differently here? And let's not say it's a problem, really. Let's not say that you're the problem,
Mhm.
But it could be that your time at this church has run out.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, man, I want to touch on that because um I was having this conversation with I've had this conversation with many times actually, but I was having it with a friend today actually, where I was like, this is just my perspective, right? This is what
Mhm.
we said. We're not perfect. We're talking
Yeah.
about our perspective.
Yeah.
But I've had many people, including myself, do it where we're like, I haven't made a decision yet on whether or not I want to leave the church that I'm currently attending. I've just been praying about it and I've just been fasting about it, and I'm waiting for God to give me an answer. And sometimes I look at like God is up there going, wait, me? Wait, you want me to give you an answer? Like I'm not forcing you to stay at this church.
Yeah.
I'm I'm not. You're free to go to whatever church you feel like you want to go to,
Exactly.
because I am going to honor your worship, your sacrifice. If you're going to worship me at home, at your church, at this church, at that church, at this church, at that church,
Mhm.
then I will honor that sacrifice and I will honor your worship. I'm not keeping you there. You're making the choice to stay there.
Yeah.
You're making the choice that you want to be at this church, and that's totally fine. We all make choices like that,
Yeah.
right? But we have to accept responsibility for our own actions and sometimes
Exactly.
say, am I the problem here? And it is no secret, it is no surprise that I went through something like that,
Mhm.
when I chose to leave the church that I had been at for multiple years, where you had lots of people kind of like talking and saying, well, why would you leave your home church? That's your home church, that's what you grew
Mhm.
up. And it's like, bro, I'm not leaving because I hate people there. I'm leaving simply because I feel like my needs are different now,
Yeah.
right? We in a relationship, in a marriage, I've been married for almost 20 years now. So in a marriage, your needs change. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? The person that I was at 18 when I got married,
Mhm.
it is not the person that I am now at 36 years old.
Yeah.
And my wife is not the same person she was.
Mhm.
So we've been having to adjust to our different needs as we've grown,
Yeah.
right? And when you are at a church and it is fulfilling your needs and your family needs for that moment in time, you're in there, you're serving, you're doing your thing, you're doing everything you can. But there comes a time, for not for everybody, but for some people, who is like, okay, my needs have changed now.
Mhm.
Am I going to stay at this church? Do I feel like this church is going to fulfill these needs, or should I go? Now, like you said, bro, we're not here to blame any church, anything, because if a church is thriving in their role and what they're doing,
Mhm.
and you're the one that needs to have changed, but everybody else's needs are being met,
Yeah.
then hey, bro, it's maybe time for you to find something different for
Yeah.
yourself, for
Of
your
course.
family. Take responsibility for your own actions. Don't sit here and wait for God to force you or show you that, nope, you need to go over here,
Mhm.
because God is going to be with you no matter where you go.
Mhm.
I feel like we put God, like you said, we put God in this bubble, and we
Mhm.
want him to fit our way of thinking. Like
Exactly.
God is a genie who is just like poof, your wish is my command,
Yeah.
poof, your wish is my command. And a lot of times it's like, no, I made you with free will.
Mhm.
You are free to do whatever you want. Now, if you want my guidance, I will guide you. And if you ask for my guidance and I see you about to make a decision that's going to hurt you or your
Mhm.
family, I will show you and make you feel like, hey, this is not the way to go.
Mhm.
But there could be 100 of good decisions and one bad one.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes we feel like it's the opposite, right? We feel
Mhm.
like, oh, I need to pray. And there's nothing wrong with praying about it. Like I said, no, definitely pray for guidance, pray for God to kind of guide you in your decision making. But you
Mhm.
need to make a decision,
Yes.
and God will
Yeah.
guide you in that decision.
Yeah. I say 100%, 100%. I think you touched it right on the nose. Which a lot of people don't. I know they're gonna be like, well, it's because you couldn't deal, you couldn't endure, you didn't have
Exactly.
enough faith, and we need to stop doing that. Okay, we all need
Yes,
to
we
stop
do.
doing that. Because while I was in church, while I was a part of the Christian organizations, whatever it may be, because I did visit other churches, and I saw the same thing. I had friends that invited me to their church, and because they needed musicians, who am I not to,
Not to go help,
offer up
right?
offer up my services? I never
Yeah,
asked for anything. All I asked was, okay, well, if you need me, just tell me what time, and I'll
I'll
do
be
my
there.
best.
Yeah, give me
Exactly.
the
Like,
songs.
yeah, and stuff like that. And I think I felt like I was serving the same God, even though we have different viewpoints and stuff like
Right,
that. I
right.
thought we still serve the same God, but because of the way we grew up in in our life, right? We limit God to that limitation, like you were saying right there. You touch back what I was saying about, that we limit God to just one, like one organization or one religion,
We try to humanize God into our
very much.
eyes
That's
when
that's
God is such we haven't even begun to understand who God is, bro.
okay. See, that's how I feel right now. Like right
Right.
now, I feel like, because I'm not trying to say that I'm better than the church. I'm just saying that I feel like I surpassed the education that I was learning in church
Mm-hmm.
because of where I am spiritually, where I feel.
Sure. Yeah,
And
I
a lot
feel
of
you.
people might look at me and be like, "You're dumb," you come, hey, like, I don't care. Like, it's just how I feel. I feel free to question God more and ask, who is this God that we've been taught so much? Is he the one that we've been taught in the Bible, or is he one a lot more powerful than that one? Maybe these are characteristics of God, but maybe God is beyond what we've learned. I feel
Yeah.
like God is way
Right.
way more. But we can talk about this forever, right? I feel like
Right.
I want to address certain,
Yeah, definitely. We got to touch
the
the points that we
I want
we set
to,
out to address,
because
right?
this I hope this podcast is not too long. I hope everybody who's watching right now, that you guys continue to watch throughout the whole thing, because I'm gonna be touching certain points that I felt, lost in, but
Yeah.
hopefully we can address those. The other thing is it, like we talked about, is it time to move on and stuff like that? This is one of the questions that I looked up, uh uh people asking this is stuff that helped me, right? The
Yeah.
internet's there to help you, okay, not misinform you all the
Of
time.
course.
It's just to help you as well, think and everything. So it says, ask yourself, does it always really just happen to you? are
Mm.
you are you telling me you never been on a train that arrived on time? Are you the only person on that train? When we start describing things in absolutes, we tend to forget about the times that it wasn't actually true. And I'm
Right.
like, oh, so again, it goes back to the perspective of how we see things, and how long are we going to dwell on the situation?
Yeah.
Whether are we exaggerating the situation? Come on, like everybody who's out there, we exaggerate to make our point. We exaggerate our, what our
Yeah.
version of what happened, and you just have to think about it. I know it doesn't feel good to, to do that, but in these moments, just remind yourself that these things don't always happen all the time, and you will at least have one expectation to every scenario you always think happens to you. And actually, they're not just happening to you, they're happening to everybody else stuck on a train. So you just don't need to take it too personally, right?
Yeah.
There are certain things in church that I will not excuse. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of things in church that I won't excuse, but
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, there's certain things that we're like, they're out to get me. And then when you ask that person who is they don't know who they are. I can address my days, right? I can
Sure.
address
Sure.
specifically who I'm talking about. And
Yeah.
because I grew
We
up
all
in
can. Right.
in the Christian religion, I can say Christians, like in
Yeah.
general, because a lot of them think the same. Again, I had friends in different, different denominations of Christianity,
Yeah. I
and we
mean,
all
myself
thought the
too, dude.
same but
Yeah.
different. Exactly. See, like,
Yeah. I
and
mean, like I
we go
grew
to
up
school
with
with
my
them, exactly.
yes. I grew up with my dad's band. For any of you who know us, I mean, I grew up with my dad's band, Los Seguidores de Cristo, norteño band, Mexican norteño band, and it's funny because the most churches that we played at were oneness churches, non-apostolic churches. We would go to a lot of what people like to call Trinitarian churches,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't agree with that word. You know what I mean? That's just me.
Yeah.
I will put that out there. That's just me. But because a lot of people want to, like I said, put things in a bubble. But
Mm-hmm.
we're all believers in Christ. Every
Mm-hmm.
single, like, I would go to these churches, and at first, whenever I started like touring with my dad and stuff, I would have, like, because of how I was raised, we go to this church and be like, oh, these Trinitarians, they're not like us and whatever. And then I'd go in there and I'm like, but why do I feel God's presence in this place?
Mm-hmm.
Why are these people showing me the love of Christ if they don't have the truth?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, bro, like,
Mm-hmm.
we're all serving the same God here. where yes, we certain things are revealed to different people at different times. Do I believe in the oneness? Yes, that's me. I believe in the oneness of God. I believe that Jesus is God. That's me, and nobody can change my mind on that.
Mhm.
Nobody. But am I gonna sit here and like put somebody down and be like, you are going to hell because of, bro? We're all brothers in Christ. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? So I know I got kind of on a side subject, but I mean, it just, you're right. We grew up in experience with different denominations,
Yeah, exactly.
um, but we're all in the same boat. We're all on
Mhm.
that same train.
We can say, yeah, we can again, a lot of us, I do, and I would address this in a different podcast where my views actually are at the moment, because again, a lot of my beliefs have changed, but I do believe that God does exist and that there is one supreme God that should be over everybody else, and again, I'll touch on that later.
Yeah,
But
a different topic for a different day.
yeah, different topic for a different day, and I can be a little bit more in depth with it and explain to you how I feel. And again, it's like Ruben was saying, that's my belief, his belief, the oneness, that's his belief, and let him believe that. He thinks, he believes, it's a personal conviction that he has, that
Yeah,
Jesus is God, and I can't tell him otherwise. I'm not here to debate and say, okay, you're wrong because of this and that, because there's a lot of flaws in my theories, and there's a lot of flaws in the way he grew up too. There are theories too that just ended up being, something that it's a belief system. That's why I'm saying your faith moves mountains, like the Bible says.
right.
Our faith moves the mountains, and if our faith moves the hand of God, then it all goes based on our faith, right?
Yeah,
All right, but there's another thing that I love getting quotes, because certain things just pop into your head.
right.
Um, it was this quote of Einstein that says, "You can't solve a problem with the ways of thinking that created it." Like saying
Oh,
the problem that was made, the situation that happened, the mistake
yeah,
that was made or whatever. How do I fix this mistake?
right.
And go back, and you can't think the same way. You got to be like, okay, let me change perspective. And a lot of the things that we have to address is the change of perspectives,
Yes,
whether
sir.
you the one who has the situation or the one who is receiving this complaint or this problem that needs attention. You both sides need to address it, and see the perspective differently.
Right.
Because again, when I say hierarchy, when the hierarchy changes, that's where it's just like the perspective, it's like, it's not that important. Who's this brother? He gives tithes sometimes. Yeah, it should not, but I have, again, like, it's like we have friends and people that we've been around, and you've heard these crazy stories that you're just like, that's insane, that wouldn't happen in my church, and then it's like, it would
Right.
happen in your church. It happens in every church. It's just a lot of people, like I said in the beginning, don't talk about it because they're too scared. But I'll get into that a little bit later. But this is another question: is this part of God's plan, or is this a man-made agenda? Now, I want to answer this first, right?
Okay, go for it, bro.
Because this is a very touchy subject with people. They're like, it's God's plan. No,
Yes.
I'm not singing Drake's song. Okay, God's plan, God's plan. No, I think I think God can answer your questions in truthfulness, but like, you have to look for, you have to ask the right questions to God, like, so he can, you, like Ruben was saying, like, reveal to you, and speak to you in a certain way, meditate about it and stuff like that. But like, think godly, like, godlike and stuff like that.
Right.
uh I can't answer for God. Maybe we were trained to think that God is a certain way, in the actuality he's a different, person. That's why I'm saying, like, if we
Right.
limit to the knowledge of what we know as God, or how our leaders have taught us, no, God thinks like this. If you do this, God
Yeah.
doesn't like it. God does, and we got to
Right.
stop. We got to stop thinking like that, right? So if this is part of God's plan, then God has to know that there's a good side and a bad side. Like, there's life or death situations in every plan that is out there. But when we talk about plans, we talk about having a predestination. And when we're predestined, people are like, what happened to free will?
Mm,
Right?
preach.
So is this, I'm not trying to preach, is this God's man, like,
But you're preaching to me, bro. I'm
is
feeling it.
this guy, is this God's way to say, yeah, you no longer have free will? Man's agenda has taken over for my plans. So now you have to listen to what man's, and let's be honest, right? God gets involved when he wants to. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it hurts. And sometimes you just want to run and leave and just never go back. And I understand because I was in those shoes, you know?
Right. Right.
And because you start blaming man and you be like, well, is this man's plan to get me out of the church? Is this God's plan to help me see him better? Or is this God's plan of saying, like, you know, I don't need you anymore. You serve me enough? Because you know, when I gave up my ministry, when I you know left the church that I was going to, or the organization overall, I felt like I was abandoning God, but I kind of felt like God wasn't answering my questions.
Right.
And I felt like who here was wrong, me or the people I was indifferent to, you know? Was it me or the people who were seeing things differently, you know? And I kept blaming myself at the way I was looking at God, and I think I found the answer there. And you know, like I said before, if you ask the question long enough, you're going to find the answer. And
Right.
I think I was just limiting God to a certain position, you know, a certain category. And then I started thinking about how people have certain agendas to get to where they want to be, you know, because okay, let's say I was in charge of a youth group, and then somebody who wanted to take my position, I'm pretty sure they were happy when I was no longer in the running to be in this leadership, just
Sure.
because it was easier to touch or easier to get to because they have all the qualifications. And dude, how many people have the qualifications? Should I have been up there? Probably not. Was I
Mm-hmm.
up there? Yeah, it was God's plan. You know, wasn't, and people were probably thinking that was man-made, you know, that was a man-made agenda. They
Right.
wanted to
Right.
control this man, and now they're like, okay, maybe he wasn't being controlled, maybe he wasn't a puppet. I never was a puppet to anybody. I agreed with certain points of views of people, but once I saw that they weren't true to their word, I decided to take other steps, which caused a separation between me and other leaders
Yeah.
because of the way I saw things, and I started to speak out on certain things that I didn't agree with. Were they small things? No. Were they big things? Not too big. You know, it's just certain things that I didn't agree with, and it had to do with man-made plans,
Sure.
you know, man-made agendas that I had to address. But like, I can't tell you if this is God's plan or this is man. You can tell. You can. I can't tell you every situation. I could tell my situations,
Mm-hmm.
but eventually you'll get to a place where you've been in church or any kind of religion enough, and you'd be like, okay, now you're bending the word to adjust to your
To what you're trying to
benefits.
accomplish,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
or your, yeah, exactly what you're trying to accomplish. So then you start to think, should I actually leave? And to be honest, I'm gonna be honest with all you people here, everybody who's tuning in, people leave church because they start seeing the plans of men. They start seeing the plans of men who have power and don't care about the people anymore. They just care about getting paid. They only care about their congregation being full. They care about the numbers over the hearts and souls of these people who are wanting to change their lives, who want to be better. And that is something that we have to address today, you know, because a lot of people leave their religion or leave whatever they are belief in because they feel like God forgot about them. So they need to forget, you know, so like God forgot about them, they got to forget about God. And
Right.
that is the biggest, you know, whose fault is it? Is it God's or is it these people?
That's you touched on that, bro, already, like right there. You
Yeah.
know, it's like people will
Mhm.
always be disappointed when you start to, when you start to believe more in man than you do in God.
Yeah.
Man will always disappoint you.
It's true.
Man,
It's
man
true.
will always disappoint you, but God will never disappoint you. That's the way I feel.
Mhm.
Now, you may feel disappointed because you didn't get the response you wanted, like you
Mhm.
said earlier, because we start talking about God's plan or your plan, right?
Mhm.
So I believe my belief system is that you're right. God only gets involved in certain situations, but for the most part, he lets you live in your free will.
Mhm.
You are living in your free will. I don't
Based on our
believe.
choices, right? Based on,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct. I don't believe in, like for me, for somebody to say, like, oh, I married the one woman that God created on this earth for me. I
Mhm.
don't believe in that.
I don't either.
I'm like, so you're telling me God created this one person for you, and if you miss that opportunity and you do not marry them, or they miss that opportunity and they don't marry you, you are going to be miserable for the rest of your life? Come on now, bro. I mean, you, like I said, God, if you seek God's guidance in your life, that's when we're talking about when people say si Dios quiere, if it's God's will,
Mhm.
right? Because we are seeking God's guidance in our life, but we have to make decisions.
Mhm.
We decide, we say, okay, Lord, in your guidance, I'm going to look for a partner in life. So I'm going to look for these characteristics, and I'm seeking your guidance, Lord. So you start dating certain people and you start seeing certain red flags. That's God right there guiding you, going, hey, that's not good for you. You should probably stay away. But are you going to listen? That's on you.
Mhm.
That's on you. So everything comes around full circle, bro. It's the same thing when deciding to stay at a church, deciding to follow a pastor, follow a leader. You need to set your eyes on God,
Mhm.
and God will be the one to guide you. But you need to make a decision. I can't stress that enough,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because you need to be the one that says, I mean, I'll give you I'll try to make it a short example of something, right? I was looking for a promotion at my job, okay, and there I was in procurement, I was in buying at my company where I work at now, and so I was a buyer, and there was a job of purchasing manager that was going to open up in Dallas, Texas, because the guy was going to retire,
Mhm.
and I was like, that sounds like a pretty good thing I'd want to do, and I asked my purchasing manager at the time, what do you think? He's like, go for it. You're
Mhm.
ready for it. Go for it. I was like, man, okay. Now I could have taken the route of saying, all right, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna pray about it and I'm gonna fast about it for days or weeks and months. And before you know it, somebody else applied and somebody else got the job, and you're sitting here like, well, I guess it wasn't part of God's plan.
Mhm.
But what did I do? I was like, okay, Lord, I'm gonna apply for this job because I want it. It's something I want. I want
Mhm.
this. I want this job. I'm gonna apply for it, and I want you to guide me every step of the way. So if there's something that's not right, I need you to put some real, good signals in front of me, some kind of stops that say, hey, you need to stop. So okay, I applied for the job. The manager there at the place called me, said, hey, I want to interview you. Okay, cool. We interviewed over the phone. Then he's like, look, I can't say this for sure, but I can't say this like on the record, but you're our dude. We're gonna hire you. Like this is you want you, but we need to like do the right thing and interview other people and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, cool. He's like, so in a few weeks, I'm gonna fly you over to Dallas so that we can, officially interview here, and then we'll go from there. All right. So I go to Dallas, bro. I interview, and we're talking, and I'm telling them this is what I want, this is the kind of pay I want. Everything is looking great, bro. Everything's looking great. And then all of a sudden they go, in the interview, he's like, well, I can't. I found out that I can't give you the official title of purchasing manager, which means that I can't give you the salary of a purchasing manager. I can't give you the bonus that comes with a purchasing manager.
Mhm.
You can come and take the job, but you're going to still be called a buyer. And it was because I didn't have a college degree and stuff like that. And he's like, I don't like that rule, but I promise you, man, you come over here and I will make you purchasing manager within this many years and this and that. I was like, okay. So I come back and I'm like, bro, I asked God to guide me in this decision making, and everything was looking good, man. I had already like when the guy told me like that I was his dude.
Mhm.
I already had plans to tell all my friends, guys, I'm moving to Dallas, Texas, man. I'm gonna miss
Mhm.
y'all. Like I was moving in my head,
You were
you
planning
know,
your go away party and everything.
dude. Dude. I kid you not. I planned. We were all gonna go to. I forgot what restaurant it was. We're all
Mhm.
gonna go, and it was crazy. So I came back and I was like, man, this is God right here. Once again, it is not that it is. It was a man agenda. I wanted to go to Dallas, Texas, but I need to take action. So I
Mhm.
took action. But in God's guidance, He was like, hey, look, you wanted this and this and this, right? They're telling you they can't give you that. They're telling you if you move, you're going to get paid less than what you wanted to get paid and all this. So it's up to you if you want to take this decision. But I'm trying to do my job as just you asked me for my guidance and telling you not to go. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go.
Mhm.
And I told the guy, I was like, I can't take the job. If you can't give me the purchasing manager position and the salary I want, I can't do it. He's like, all right, I understand. I understand. Dude, less than a year later, our company did away with all purchasing managers. And they, instead of having a purchasing manager at each distribution center, they had two purchasing managers for each region, one for the West, one for the East. And that was it. I would have been either without a job over there, or I would have just stayed as a buyer for the rest of who knows how long. So
Mhm.
that promise that this guy made me,
Yeah.
nothing, bro. Nothing.
Mhm.
I was like, dude, God really like because I asked for his guidance,
Yeah.
saved me from that. And then less than a couple months later, I ended up getting promoted into sales. And dude, like life has been great ever since, as far as like my family economics, in my family, in my life, has been great. But that's
Mhm.
what I'm saying. A lot of people sit here and they want God to be like this genie and just like, I'm going to stay still and I'm not going to act. I'm going to wait for God to
Yeah.
tell me what I'm going to do.
Mhm.
No, you need to act and God will guide you. But we cannot sit here and
Mhm.
just be immobile, just like
Yeah.
do nothing. You need to
Yeah.
act on something and God will guide you in that decision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that applies a lot to people making the decisions if they have to leave the church, if they feel like
Exactly.
their growth has, has stopped, and they have to move to a different church to so their faith may grow or their knowledge in God may grow. And sometimes you get to a stopping point where you're just like, yeah, I can't learn anymore because I don't know if this is God's plan, is this my plan, or whose plan is this? You kind of have to make those leap of faith decisions and just start testing the waters and stuff like that. The
Bro.
next question is, can I voice my opinion to my pastor? And this is a very, very difficult one to answer, but I think we all have this question, and I'm gonna combine this with the next question that I had was, can I trust my pastor? It's like, can I voice my opinion to the pastor, and can I trust him? And I'm gonna tell you yes and no. Yes, you should be able to, but no, you probably shouldn't always voice your opinion, because sometimes your opinion is out of line, and you have to think about how you approach it. And sometimes when we're too emotional, we don't have that kind of sense, like common sense. We just make abrupt decisions, or we say things abruptly. It could cause a division between you and the leaders, you and the pastor, you and the ministers, you and the congregation entirely,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's like the biggest problem that we have. But I think this debate goes for the masses,
Yeah.
for the entire church, because I think in all, I think this should be more addressed to the pastors, that the pastors should be able to win the trust, not buy the trust, but win over people,
Hmm.
by showing their confidentiality with them. And I think, if this was like a I think if this was like like you could actually, hired a professional. If pastors had the confidentiality rule, between client and therapist,
Right.
I think a lot more pastors will be there to help them rather than talk bad about them when they don't like what they did or the decision because they didn't choose, to do what you actually told them to do. I think the pastors have to address this a little bit better than I could, because I had never wanted to be a pastor. I felt like that job was way too hard to deal with because there was too many people that I had to. But I do love to listen and give my opinion on what the solution could be for a certain person. But
Yeah.
could you voice it? You should be able to voice your opinion. You should be able to trust your pastor. But today and age, very difficult. Not highly recommended. It is recommended, but not highly recommended to that degree. And I don't say don't trust your pastor just because of I just said it, or don't trust your pastor because this person doesn't trust them. It's just you kind of have to test the waters and see what you can actually talk to with your pastor and see the importance level that it is towards him, or her, whoever is helping, with you the situation. Could it be a pastor, a minister, or anybody in ministry, like it could be women's ministry, it could be men's ministry, it could be kids
Yeah.
ministry, it doesn't matter. In any kind of ministry that you may find yourself, whether it's your pastor, a woman or a man, they have their own opinions, they have their own set, of convictions. So they're going to give you stuff based on their opinions. So don't get angry, don't get upset, don't get against them because they don't answer the question like you want to.
Right.
I do say you have to be careful with what you actually share with them, because sometimes it could take a toll on the way people perceive you or the image that you have in church. Uh, I know, again, it's one of those things that I wish it wasn't like that, but sadly, that's the place we live in. And we get those people who usually just don't care. They're just like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
just pray and fast and do this, and then you come back, and then they're like, no. And then that's another reason why they leave. They're like,
Right.
I don't feel safe here. I told
Right.
you, with confidence certain things, and I don't feel safe because you used it against me. And so, dude, I've seen this so many times in a church, right? Where I see a pastor, talking to this person and whatnot, and then they use them as an example at their
In a
church.
preaching.
And I'm like, dude, I'm a visitor. Like, I'm helping you with, youth stuff. And you over here talking bad mouthing these people. And I'm like, what would you say if I told you something in secret?
Exactly. Who
Like,
you gonna go tell?
like who the heck? Like, you're supposed to help people. You're not supposed to be here to belittle anybody. It's like, I didn't use their name. And I'm like, but many people probably know who
They
you were
already
talking
know who
about
you're talking
specifically,
about.
because you probably just said it right now and they were just in your office an hour ago.
Exactly.
You have to be careful with who you talk about on that
Yeah.
stage. No, sorry, I said stage, but on that pulpit, right?
Platform. Yeah.
On that platform, social media platform. I'm just kidding. Anywhere, anywhere you may talk about it, you have to be careful with the information that you give. Because
Yeah.
again, if the client, if the pastors had the client and therapist kind of confidentiality kind of thing, I think
Right.
pastors would be able to help. But again, pastors are not psychologists, they're not therapists, they don't get paid to do that. They should be there to help mend wounds, but
Yeah.
the pastors have to be smart enough to send over to the professionals. Don't try to be a professional about it and you don't know what the hell you're doing. Like, don't just
Right.
guess it.
Yeah,
Like,
you need to have that wisdom to be able to say, look, this is beyond my capabilities.
exactly.
You know,
And there's no
I
shame. There's no shame in that.
exactly, bro, because you're a human being. So not everybody's perfect. You can
Yeah.
say, you know what, hey, I've helped a lot of marriages in my life, and okay, maybe that's something that you are very comfortable with, and you can advise many marriages, and you've been able to help many marriages. Fine. But then somebody comes to you with something, I don't know, very, very serious, right? You're like, oh, somebody's coming to you about sexual abuse or something like that. If that's not your forte, if you're like, okay, look, this is not where I, can help you with something. I can kind of
Mhm.
give you my personal opinion,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna tell you, you should probably look for a therapist, a psychiatrist, somebody that can help you with this topic, because I can only do so much for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's fine. You can say, okay, thank you, Pastor, or even then you can suggest, without breaking confidentiality, right?
Mhm.
Saying, look, I know another pastor, a bishop, somebody who has dealt with this many times. Do you feel comfortable if I talk to them about your situation? And maybe you can even talk to them yourself, or maybe I can
Yeah.
refer you to them, because obviously they've made friends, they've made connections, they know different people have dealt with different things. Somebody
Yeah.
maybe has dealt with, suicide and mental health, or
Mhm.
different things. So there's no shame, bro. Ain't no
Yeah.
shame in it. So, to kind of answer like the question at hand, I feel like we all I go back to the whole you make decisions thing. Okay.
Mhm.
You make a decision to attend a church, right? Okay. So me and my family we make a decision. We say we're going to attend this church.
Yeah.
Then after attending this church for a bit of time and having conversations with the pastor and stuff, you start to gauge your level of comfort with them.
Mhm.
And once you decide that, okay, I want to open myself up to this pastor, I want to, confide in them.
Mhm.
I believe that you should, because that's the only way you're going to get your answers on whether or not they are a trustworthy person. You're
Mhm.
never going to know unless you actually try.
Mhm.
Now, I don't mean like go for your like deepest, darkest secrets right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you start off like, hey, pastor,
Yeah.
I'm having some problems, da da da. And
That's what I
then
was leading to, that you should
yeah,
start small. Like, like, ask questions, being like, okay, so I have this question about this. Don't get too specific with it, try to beat around the bush a little bit just to see what their reaction is. Because
right. Don't go
if
off
you
the bat and say like, I just murdered 3 people. Can
yeah,
you help
like,
me with?
okay, if you did that, you might as well just turn yourself in, because the pastor
Exactly.
should go ahead and report you and stuff like that. Like, and I know, like, we're joking about that, but it's
Yeah.
true, like
But
certain
yeah, you're
things
right. You're right.
will happen and you do have to, speak out. And sometimes it's like, I never thought my dad or my parents would, say this or think that way about me, and I thought they were always going to be my side, but I did this bad thing. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
it could be vice versa. Your
Right.
parents have done stuff in their past and you're like, I'm not proud of that, and
Exactly.
and I know people just hold that against you, and you can never shake that off. And that's what sucks, because you should be able to address certain things with your family, but you should be able to do that same thing with your leadership in church. And the reality is, that it's not always that easy,
It
or
ain't.
it's not one of those things that you should actually talk about like that. You should talk about it. I'm not trying to say don't talk about it. I'm saying you should talk about it, but it's just who you go to is technically kind of discernment. You kind of got to know
Yes.
who you're speaking to, and you need to know where they can go. Because if it's like, let's say it's a new pastor and wife, and let's just say they just got married,
Right.
and they just got a pastorship, you got to be careful if you're older than them and you've been through experiences. I'm not saying that they can't give you advice or they can't,
Sure. Right.
help you in figuring out the right answers. They probably be more helpful in helping you find, people close by that are more professional about it. But
Exactly.
I'm saying sometimes they don't know. They don't know. It's like culture, just because we're Latinos or Hispanic, doesn't mean we grew up in the same type of culture. Like, yes, we
Right.
have a lot of similarities, but our cultures are very different. There's for the most part, the way that people get married and the way that people, do things in our parents' countries or even our own countries, is very different from how it is today and age,
Yeah.
in the last few years and whatnot. But yeah, so I want to continue just to keep it rolling, because
Yeah, man.
I don't know how long we've been talking already, but I just want to kind of, I'll
I
cut
feel
this
you,
piece out.
man.
Yeah.
Let's do
So
it.
okay. So the other question is, can it be safe? This is a question that I've always, and this is, about speaking out. Can it be safe to speak up and speak out? And how does this affect me and my family at
Hmm.
church? Okay. It's never going to be safe. I'm gonna just go ahead and say it's never going to be safe enough for us. And that's why it's like, yo, what is this hypocrisy here? The church is there to help you, religion's there to heal people in
Yeah.
certain ways, but they control too much, right? But that's the honest truth, bro. Like that's the honest truth. Like, some, because of you speaking out, they ostracize you. Like, you shouldn't have talked about that, you shouldn't touch that
Right.
topic, because
Right.
they're like, no, you should just get out of this church because we're too scared and you're saying it and we're associated with you. So no. And then, we're going to look bad. And then your own friends that believe what you believe are just too scared to talk about it. And I've seen this in leaders, that leaders have certain problems with other leaders. And because they don't address it, and then when you
Right.
address it, they turn their backs on you saying, I never said that. And it's like, we're here to help each other,
Right.
and you have to address it, especially in leadership. If you're a leader and you have to address something to another leader, both of you should be mature enough to be able to handle the responsibility of each other's actions, of
Yeah.
what each other said to each other or whatever it may be. But a lot of this can cause people to look at you as a rebel or an outcast or somebody who, like, just, the crazy bunch,
Yeah.
not the Brady bunch, but the crazy bunch of
The
people.
crazy bunch.
Yeah, and they just shift you to the side, and then you're like, well, I can't have a voice in church because when I say something, when I try to address something, they consider me a sinner. And I'm like, no, it shouldn't be like that, man. And it seems like this debate is going to go on. Like, every question I have been asking or have been asked to me, it's been the same thing. Like, this leads to people wanting to leave the church because a lot of the church congregations cannot address it. They're too scared. Like, let's say what's called it, gender, right? Gender roles or
Yeah.
sexuality preference, or
Yeah.
whatever it may be. Like, nobody wants to address it because they're too scared. The easiest way to address it, say,
Mental health.
yeah, oh, exactly. But the easiest way to address it, be like, that's sin and that's it.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like, that for me, that argument does not work in this day and
It
age.
can't. It can't.
Because
It can't.
you have to push the barriers. I'm not trying to tell you to change the rules. I think you should relook at those rules, and because you rewrite them for yourself all the time, you should probably adjust it to help other people too. You should look at it in the grace period. If we're talking about, let's say, Jesus, existed, and that's the grace period of God, then you have to look at it in Jesus' way of looking at things, because he was with sinners. He didn't expose the sinners, did he? No, he was there to be with them. So if we take Jesus' story as word, as the truth and the only truth and nothing but the truth, then we should actually address every situation that comes up to us in that manner, that Jesus was forgiving. How many times can we forgive this person?
70
Whatever.
times 7.
shut up. Like, no, I'm not saying it to you. I'm not saying it to you. All right. I'm just saying,
No, I know, I
shut
know.
up. If you're not gonna practice what you preach, please stop. I'm not saying this to attack anybody. I am saying this so you can address the situation. So because this can be taken out of church context as well. But I'm speaking about church right now, but you could take this out of context and be like, you have to address certain situation. You have to see the perspective and for the betterment of yourself and the betterment of the people that you are trying to help. Correct?
Well, let's be honest, bro. A lot of churches nowadays um are in danger of becoming or have already become the Pharisees, right?
Oh, bro,
You know what I
since the
mean?
since the
Eh,
first church, came
Exactly.
to existence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's be honest here, okay? Yes, a lot of churches are there already or in danger of being there because of, like you said, we are going back to, oh, if you don't follow these rules, you're going to go to hell. And it's like, okay, well, what happened to grace and love and mercy? Now, there is, I believe, yeah, that there is a structure to um that everybody has to follow your own structure, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if let's just say for you, for a woman who have grown up in because we're gonna, obviously, you and I grew up in a oneness church.
Mm-hmm.
So hey, you've been taught your whole life you can't wear pants, gotta wear
Mm-hmm.
skirts all the time. And as an adult, you feel like, you know what, I know that maybe wearing pants is not going to send me to hell, but to me, wearing my skirt all the time, it helps me in my walk with God. Fine, do it,
Yeah.
love it, because that helps you in your own personal relationship with God. We need
Mm-hmm.
to stop looking towards church and religion and people
Mm-hmm.
to tell us how to get to heaven. We need to
Exactly.
search God. We need to search for God and say, Lord, I want to have a relationship with you. We had this conversation about, like you said, you and I have sort of gone in different directions. We've um, experienced some of the same trauma from
Mm-hmm.
church, but you're sort of in a place of like, hey, I don't believe in sort of this religion anymore. I believe in God, but I want to find my own path. And
Mm-hmm.
I respect that, and I love it, bro. I love it. And me, I'm in a different way, right? Where I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't maybe believe in all this structure and all these rules, but I still believe in God, and I believe in church, in community, in corporate worship. I love it, so I love to have a church that I can call my home and go with my wife
Mm-hmm.
and the kids and worship God and everything. But I don't look at the same things the same way as I used to. And I tell my wife this all the time. I'm like, old Ruben is gone. Old Ruben that just wants to please man and wants to follow the rules that man has set, just to be used, just to get to a certain platform. That ain't me no more.
Exactly.
Because I now believe in God, and I believe in a God that is merciful. I
Mm-hmm.
believe in a God that is loving. I believe in a God that loves all people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who you are. I don't care what you identify as, what pronouns you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what color of skin you are. I don't care. God loves everybody. Okay. And the second that we start to ostracize certain people based on their color of their skin, based on their gender, based on their sexual preference, we are becoming Pharisees.
Exactly.
We are
It's
becoming Pharisees, and we can't we so I mean, I agree with you, but I disagree.
mm-hmm.
When you said you're never going to be safe,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there are very few, but there are out there
Mm-hmm.
churches that you can find the right pastor, you can find the right church, even within an organization,
Mm-hmm.
that might be a little bit more progressive, that might be a little bit more understanding,
Mm-hmm.
that might be a little bit more on the side of, hey, we're not here to judge anybody.
Mm-hmm.
We're not here to ostracize anyone. We're not here to condemn anybody. We are here to love on everyone.
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, I've, and I'll say this from my experience in my pastor, okay, my current pastor. I've heard him say, and I know that he means it. I know that he means it when he says, you could have just been clubbing at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you're drunk, and you want to come to church drunk, do it. come to church, please. I love you.
Yeah.
I don't care. Don't stay home. If
Mhm.
you feel like, man, I just got out of this club and I am super drunk and I just had sex with this girl and I don't even know who she was, and I want to go to church. You know that there's a lot of churches out there who are gonna be like, excuse me, I'm sorry, no, we can't let you in like this. You smell like alcohol. You're in shorts. I'm sorry, so you're gonna have to walk out.
Mhm.
But I'm saying, like, and if anybody wants to ask me personally what church I attend to and want to try it out and want to be like, look, I'm gonna go to his church, do it, and I bet you anything, my pastor will not kick you out
See,
and will
look,
say,
this and that's the thing. It should be like, your how you feel in wherever environment you want to be in. Should it
yes,
be
exactly,
uh because you were in this part, like you said, you were part of a church for so many years, and then there are people like you betray your church because you left. And you talked about it,
yes,
you
yeah,
you
exactly,
outgrow
exactly,
it sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't give you what you need, or the way that you have grown, especially when you got married. You start
yeah,
looking at things differently, especially for your kids, because it's a new generation. And if they're still doing things that the older generations were doing, then they're not, meeting, expectations for these young people, your children that are living in this world that has been so corrupted by, governments, and these
yes,
same governments that people bash and talk about are in the churches as well, you
and
know
religious governments,
and
exactly,
yeah, exactly. And that's why, like, sometimes, like, I know what you say, like, I still think that it's not safe, because either somebody it leaks out somewhere some information that you didn't want to be leaked. And I say it's not safe, but it's not safe to not say anything too.
yeah, yeah.
You definitely have to address certain things, and yes, it's going to affect your family, it's going to affect you, it's going to affect certain things in your
You
life.
have to be wise. You
Yeah,
have to be
you
wise in how
definitely
you
have
do
to.
things.
And that's the thing, because we don't have the answers to everybody's situation. We're just answering these questions in a general sense of our experience, our opinions, and our perspectives. So if
I
you
mean,
look at,
this podcast is this podcast is an example.
yeah,
I had you probably had nobody to check with on what you wanted to talk to in this podcast.
yeah,
I had to alert my wife and let
yeah,
her know, hey,
yeah,
babe, I'm going to be talking on this podcast. These are kind of topics that we're going to talk about. How do you feel about it? Because
mhm.
you might get asked, like, hey, I saw your husband on this podcast and some of the stuff that he was saying,
Yeah,
So yeah,
and
you're right. It sometimes affects your family. So you
it
got to be
does.
wise about that.
Exactly. You do have to be wise with what you say and how you say it, because people will be like, well, I'm gonna sue this person, defamation of character. And they have the right to do it. Are they gonna win? No, probably not. But you
Right.
never know. But that this podcast is mostly about that, right? It's when I say what about Yoyo, I mean what about my opinions, and these are my opinions. I cannot stress that enough, that these
And
are
they are
my
valid.
and yeah, like, everybody's opinions is valid to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Doesn't
sir.
mean it is law. It just means that I just see it differently, and we should all take consideration. We should all take it under consideration, and be like, okay, this person sees it this way, should I ask these questions? And maybe this is going to help. Again, I was with young people that had these questions. This might help a lot of ministers, this might help a lot of churches. And maybe I'm not a big platform or anything, and I don't like, this is just like, what, my third episode. This
Yeah.
doesn't mean that this is going to be a flop for me, but it doesn't mean that it won't be helpful to you as well, because I'm going to address certain things that I think can be the betterment of the church and your ministry
Yes.
overall. But okay, so this leads up to my next question. It's like,
Yeah.
where can I go for answers? And this is my simple reply: educate yourself. Be like, where,
Amen.
brother? Where do I educate myself? Read your Bible. Also, go to the library. If you have certain topics you need to talk about legally, of illegal stuff happening, go to the library, go talk about it, Google it, do whatever. You have access to certain things that the church cannot address. Again, sometimes they're not experienced enough. The people who are in there are not experienced enough. They don't know these topics. They've never touched these topics, but you can educate yourself on what is going on in your
Mm-hmm.
life around you, and you can address it. And many pastors, they just, this is gonna get bad. I feel like I'm
Mm,
preaching. I'm just kidding. I'm not trying to
mm.
preach. But many pastors think that their members are not smart enough to figure this out on their own. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
they need me. I'm not gonna tell them
Many
because they
pastors
need
do.
me, and they should not think that way. Because then these people, and I'm one of them, that I feel like when I've been, I talk to different pastors, and the way that they reply to me make me feel like I'm stupid because they're like, "You dumb," They don't say it out loud. It's just like
Right.
they give you that look that you're like, "You dumb, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am very dumb, but I like to." Ask questions. I like to educate myself because there's certain knowledge that the church doesn't give you. There's certain knowledge that the pastors don't know and they can't give you. And they were like, well, if you look for that knowledge outside of the church, it's a sin. Again, it always goes back to sin. I'm like,
Right.
why? Why? If we are sinful people, then even the pastor is gonna sin, the
Yes.
highest, person on the totem pole, the highest in the hierarchy, of everything. It's always going to be a sinner.
Sinners. They're all
Even Paul.
sinners.
Let's go back to Paul. Paul said, he is the biggest example of everybody, right?
Right.
I fall short of the grace,
Right.
I fall short. That means that even he knew that he was a failure because he did stuff that he shouldn't. He wasn't proud of, but he wanted to fix it. And like, this is another thing that I wanted to talk about. Once people educate themselves with things that shouldn't be happening, or they should be addressed at church, and they can't find the proper solution because the higher ups just want to sweep it under the rug or move on. It's easier for them to defend a lie with no proof than to believe the truth that has evidence. People believe what you tell them to believe, whether you're willing to know or willing not to know. People like to be like, don't worry about it. Shh, it happened once. Don't worry. It'll be all right. God is with you. I'm like, come on. You can't let just one thing happen and then let it go. Like, and this goes for everything you want to address.
Of course.
This is a general topic for a lot of different things, right? That you cannot just let things go, sweep it under the rug and be like, it's okay, it'll be all right. You have to think about how, again, what I said, this question, you have to think about how it would affect your family, the family of the people that are going through this situation, and who, like me, okay, like I went through certain things and I was feeling down and out, and I know that when I decided to leave, it affected a lot of young people that looked up to me.
Yeah, of course.
And like I said in my first podcast, I feel like I failed them at first. Then I had friends that were like, you didn't fail. You did what you could with what the time you had. And then I started thinking about it like that. But I do still feel like I failed certain people that I was helping build up. Is that my fault? Yes. But I also lit a fire in them so they can continue on with, I had one of my friends. He's a really good friend. I've seen him grow up in ministry and everything. I've seen him do a lot of things, right? And if you know who you are, then you know what I'm talking about.
You know who you are.
Yeah, you know who you are. And he said he wanted to do what I instilled in him, what I imparted in him, of how he wanted young people, and he wanted to he wanted to be that influence in the young people, and wanted to impart something that he had, like his talents,
Right.
And I was like, bro, do it. You got this. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be a church. It doesn't, like, if you have an instrument, if you can help, just don't do this all out of your own pocket, like ask for donations, but ask people to be aware of what you're doing so they can get involved too. And this is going to help them feel together. And that's what church should be, togetherness, a community. But today and age, we don't have that community. We don't have that because this person knows the answer to this question that I have, but because this person doesn't like that person and I'm associated with that person, I can't go to this. You know what I'm saying? You have to learn how to educate yourself. In church, there's some things you have to compromise. I don't hate that word, to be honest. To compromise means to sacrifice a part of you, but sometimes you do have to do that. You do have
Life
to
is
sacrifice.
about compromises.
It is. And I think you should find common ground on certain topics, but sometimes you do have to compromise with certain situations of, like, let's say only Spanish. Okay, if you could speak English, translate for your kid. If this doesn't help you, maybe you should look for a bilingual church.
Right.
Like you have the ability to do things, but where can I go for answers? There's certain people that could answer. Where can I learn how to be a musician? Sometimes it's not your talent. I know, Ruben, you love saying that. Sometimes you're not talented enough to do it, but sometimes there are people who are willing and have the patience to teach you and to help you get through certain things. Like some people have the patience to talk to you about these questions, but we have to believe that there are certain people out there, like you said, like I know I said it's not a safe place, but there's like a good like a small handful of people of churches that can still be a safe place, and it could be a good environment. And like you said, your church as an example, the church you're attending to right now, that it feels like a good place.
And it could be that a year or two later, I don't feel safe there anymore.
Yeah.
And it could be that he's like, you know what, things have changed,
Yeah.
my needs have changed, something's changed, I don't
Yeah.
know, the pastor has changed,
Yeah.
and I don't feel the same anymore. And
And
so
and that's true. And
we
that's
look for
true.
something else,
We
you know. But
do.
but like you said, you need to learn how to educate yourself.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing wrong with educating yourself. I think that, you know, God has given us the technology that we have today for a reason. You know, it used to be that, yeah, you took your pastor's word for everything
Yeah.
because maybe that, you know, it was like, oh well, this is the only guy that I know that has like 5,000 books about religion and different
Yeah.
things, and so I you know, I
Yeah.
wholeheartedly believe him.
It's
But
so
now
true.
we got these magical devices called, dude, they're
Smartphones.
crazy, they're called
Yeah.
phones.
And you know what's funny is that my dad, he was my pastor here locally, right?
Yeah,
And he would always tell me, it's good to doubt, it's good to question, it's good. And I'm like, you don't think I'm gonna get lost? I'm like, yeah, okay. Educating yourself is gonna cause more questions,
it
but
is.
it's good to doubt so you can figure out for yourself, so you can have your own belief in what you've been taught. If you think this is real, if you think this is true, then go ahead and follow it. I told my dad the other day, I feel more Jewish now than I did when I was in church, because I was
Right.
just like, we just carry the name, we have the Jewish ancestry on our
Yeah.
backs, but I'd never studied Judaism,
Right.
but
Right.
when I started studying more about different religions, I'm like, damn, like I have a lot of point of views that, you know, Judaism brings to light. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I agree a lot with what they say. I do. Again, I grew up as a Christian, so I do have certain biases, but do I believe everything entirely? No, I don't. Like, it's both. It's everything. I'm trying to pick up information about who God is, and that's my discovery. And again, that's a
Right.
different podcast, but I'm just saying, if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel like you have the proper answers to your questions, then maybe you should take a look at what you're doing.
Yeah, for
Do
sure.
your part to change the dynamic, or to change your life in a certain sense. Don't get used to the whole, the same routine, same thing. My parents did it, so I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna just keep quiet. You have to address certain things.
But
And this, yeah,
once again, if that works for you, bro,
yeah,
then do it. You know what I
exactly,
mean? Like if you're like, hey, this is what I've been taught and I feel comfortable in my walk with God, I feel good, then
yeah,
do it. But don't pretend to be someone you're not.
yeah.
Don't like be like, well, this is what I was taught, even though I really don't believe it, but it's just what I've been taught. No,
No,
if you are not convicted in your beliefs, you need to go research, you need to go study, you need to go find in within
another,
the Bible or other stuff.
yeah, another thing based on what you're saying right now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Don't force people to believe what you believe, okay?
No,
And
not at
that's what
all.
that's what I'm trying to say here with this, because again, I have a different belief system. Even though I grew up as a Christian, I am no longer a Christian. I do see Christian views as, a moral compass, right? Like a sense of
Yeah,
being, ethically correct,
right.
like you being nice, being a good person, in the world. You give out to the world what you put into it,
Yeah,
like, and you, it comes back to you. It's the karma. I don't get all spiritual about it, stuff like that, about the karma and stuff. It comes right back at you, but it's the truth. Around the world, whatever you put out into it, it comes back to you, and it either bites you in the ass or it helps you move on forward to help you be a better person, right? But this is a very tough one. This is kind of
mm,
something that I touched on with my sister. Me and my sister wanted to talk about church trauma, but we didn't get to that point. But I will address that in a different podcast as well. I know we mentioned Ruben mentioned it here, and we've been talking about it, the past few days. Me and him, personally, we've been talking about
yeah.
certain things that, we've been through, and it's caused trauma. But this is a thing that I think in our culture has been a wedge for a lot of people. It says, what happens if you speak out in a certain church cultures? And that is like the biggest that's like the biggest debate that we have. Like, I know many people is going to be a simple one, just like, if you speak out, you're going to get kicked out. If
Yeah,
you
yeah.
badmouth anybody, you're going to, see damages around your life. But people do not want to talk about the mental and spiritual health.
Yes, sir.
They just talk about mental health, and, and it is mental health, but you have an emotional, that's your spiritual health. I'm not
Yeah,
saying that like all in the spiritual realm and stuff like, yeah, you could take that as that, but I'm saying in a spiritual sense, like, how do you feel emotionally? Your emotional mental health hurts, but also, everything else. You have a lot of stress that has
right.
been built on you. And the culture that you've lived in is like, shut up, don't say nothing. This has happened in our country. This will
Tough it
happen
out.
here. Yeah. And Now we live in a different culture that is like, well, if you don't have proof, then you can't say shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it just like gets like, I'm not trying to say gang up and just randomly pick people to start witnessing for you and be like, this
Right,
person,
right.
stop, right? Be smart with what you're saying. Like the approach that you take towards somebody is, you know, you have to think about the effects, the
Yeah,
cause and effects of everything that you do, and you like to approach, you know, like the church culture changes every 5 to 10 years.
yeah.
Pastors know it.
I think it changes even faster nowadays,
Probably, yeah,
bro.
probably faster
Yeah,
than
man.
that, especially when new churches are formed every year. Every few months there's a new church.
And
There,
society is just
yeah,
changing on a daily now.
society changes, technology changes, social media changes,
Yes.
the actual news media has changed so much. And I've
Drastically.
preached about how, you know, the media been has been there now to stir our emotions rather than to give us true information, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I had a
Yeah.
friend that said that everything's political now, and he's like, if you've been living under a rock, if and I to be honest, it took me by like shock, and I was like, damn, he's right. And I just, you know, I just love to argue. Okay. But when he said that, I was like, damn, he's not wrong. Everything is viewed in a political sense now. And that
Yep.
sucks. But it can also be helpful, you know. But like in the cultures that we have been built, like lived on. Okay. So there's some cultures, right? And this is going to be like one of those things, right? So
All
there's
right. All
Spanish
right.
cultures, right?
Yeah.
That only like Spanish people in their church. When English
Sure.
speaking people want to see what the hype is about, they come and visit and they don't get addressed to, you know why? They might feel good and everything. They just didn't understand what was going on. You know why?
Sure.
Because nobody wants to speak their language. The
Yep.
same thing happens when it's just an all English speaking church.
Definitely.
Spanish people try to go in there, trying to talk and trying to understand. They don't understand Jack. They leave. They're like, I felt the presence of God, but I was not informed with anything. I just felt
Yeah.
that this was the church, you know? But I think in those kinds of cultures, it sucks because they look at you as a minority,
Yeah.
just like, you know, the country we live in now, that, you know, certain minorities in church, certain groups, you know, ethnic groups rule over other ethnic groups, even though they have similarity, you know,
Yeah.
they're like similar races and stuff, but just it's just that is where it gets very difficult, because and then it goes to, you should have been tough enough because my family was tough enough, you should do
Yeah.
this because this was the way we were taught. And that is where people get broken and they stop believing in God. Not only leave the church, but they stop believing in God because of these cultural things, that it's tradition, right?
Yeah.
When we put these traditions on and we're like, okay, it's the tradition that we have in this church is just a cultural thing, you know.
Yeah.
And the more that you force it onto people, you start to look like a word that I'm going to say, a word that nobody likes. You start to
Oh.
look like a cult. I am
Oh.
sorry, but if you look up the definition of a cult, it is forcing people to believe a traditional system that you have came up with, not law, not truth. It is your law, it is your truth, and that makes you a cult. Sorry, if there's a church
Mm.
that needs to hear that, you need to address certain things. I'm not trying to say be liberal, you have to
No,
have your system.
not at all. Yeah, you have your standards
But like you were
that you
saying
have.
about,
Yeah.
like, you know, like accepting people as they are rather than how they look, you know,
Yeah.
you can't, because I know, again, in the church that we grew up in, uh we have to look a certain way to be accepted a certain way.
Sure.
Let's
Yeah.
say if I was still in leadership and I had this beard, most of the pastors would be like, nah, you can't get up on that stage, you know. And you know what's funny is that
And I'm
I,
the worship leader, and look at my beard.
exactly. So like me, I was when I was never ordained minister,
Yeah.
but I would respect the pulpit enough for them. I didn't feel like I couldn't get
Sure.
behind it. I just respected enough that I stand to the side always,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that was there. But that was because that was the culture that I grew up in, and that I
Sure.
learned to do that, and I learned to be quiet. But and then I got to the point where I was like, I got to stop being quiet. I need to speak on behalf of people who don't grow up in that culture, who are from this country, not the country of our parents, that they
Yeah.
grew up with different cultural rules and stuff like that.
Yeah, bro. I mean, we grew up in certain uh church cultures that are going to teach you that if you speak out, you are in sin, or if you speak out, then you're not being respectful of your elders. And
Yeah.
not only that, bro, but there's a lot of things that we don't talk about in the church, like I said, because of church culture, right?
Mhm.
How many times do we address sex with our teens?
That's another
Uh,
thing. Yeah.
never.
Never.
Never. I mean, very few churches that I can think of maybe do some kind of talk. And I get it. There's also legal things behind it, because it's like, well, if you go in there and you're like a youth pastor and you're like talking about sex with minors, and the parents are gonna be like, why are you talking to sex with my kids? So no,
Yeah.
that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But just in a general sense, like even me, like I'll speak about my perspective. Growing up, my parents never like talked to me about sex. It wasn't like they were like,
I was put in
okay,
sex
let's
ed.
what I learned from sex, I learned it from sex
School board.
education at school,
Yeah. Sex ed.
or friends.
Yeah.
That was it, bro. That was it. So you grow up with this taboo, and because it's your culture, right? It's like, oh no, sex is bad before marriage, don't do it. That's it. But
Mhm.
come on now, bro. We're all kids. I mean, we grow up and we're like, hormones are going crazy, you know. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you speak out all of a sudden, or let's just say, you're struggling with pornography or anything like that,
Exactly. Yeah,
and you
that's exactly that is where this is, because again, church cultures can change from one generation to the other, even
yes,
though they
sir.
grew up in the same household, right? It's just one generation of pastors turn into a different generations of pastors, and they
Yes.
come out with another one. And that's what I'm saying, that like that's what, the question when it was asked, I thought that is exactly you were talking about it right now, is that the sexual misconduct, the
Yes.
sexual immorality, right? Masturbation, porn, all this stuff cannot be spoken to about or anything, because people are like, no, you talk about it, you're a sinner. If you're doing it, you're going to hell anyways, and there's like,
Yeah.
there's no way out. And that's
Or
that's
you're
that's
possessed by some kind of perverted demon.
exactly. And I'm like, they always shift the blame to somebody or something that doesn't have nothing to do with it, because I've said this before, but a lot of
Because they don't have the
people.
answer.
No, exactly. But a lot of pastors, shift the blame to the devil, and they give the devil too much,
Too much credit.
too much credit. And the devil is not who they've been talking about. Like, yeah, I'll be like the enemy, and I'm like, sometimes the enemy is yourself. So you need to
Many
be careful.
times.
You need to be careful what
Many
you're saying with
times.
that. But that the
Bro,
culture changes.
I mean, I know that you said, we're not gonna or maybe we would, but quote some scripture and stuff.
Yeah.
But actually, it's funny because we were just talking about this at our Bible study at church, which we were studying the book of James, and there's a part in the Bible, in the book of James, where it talks about that, where it talks about, you know, God is not gonna tempt you, right? So a lot of times we talk about like, oh, maybe this is God tempting me and testing me. Is like, no, God is not tempting you, with sin. Why
Mhm.
would God tempt you with sin? Like when He knows that
Uh,
you are human and you're probably gonna fail. Like no, and then so what do
Human
we do?
nature.
Right, exactly. And then we want to shift the blame over to the enemy. Now,
Mhm.
like I said, we may believe different things, but in my belief, the devil is not omnipresent like God is, and is not and everywhere all at one time. So if I mean, now he might have demons all over the world or whatever,
Yeah.
like stuff. But we go like, I had this conversation with my therapist,
Yeah.
and I was talking to her, and I was like, why is it that sometimes I'm trying to like, okay, I'm trying to be good. I'm in my car, I'm listening to my Christian music and this and that, and all of a sudden thoughts of porn come to my head, or this and that, and I was like, is that the enemy like coming against me? Because that's what we've been taught.
Mhm.
And she goes, and this is like I said, seek a therapist, guys. Like seriously,
Yeah.
like
You
seriously,
could
if,
talk
if you
to.
need one, seek one. Because I'm telling you to help you out. But she was like, Ruben, we're human beings of habit,
Mhm.
right? So if you've conditioned your mind all the time to go left, and every time that you're trying to do something, your mind turns to porn or turns to sex or whatever, and now you're trying to be good and you're trying to turn right, but you've always turned left, your mind is trying to go left. That's not the enemy going, oh, I'm gonna tempt him, I'm gonna get him. That's your mind going, hey, we've always turned left here. We've always gone this way.
Yeah.
And it's like you need to retrain yourself to then go
Yeah.
right. So we put too much blame on the devil and say the devil's trying to come
Hmm.
against me. Like, bro, it's you.
Hmm.
It's you. But no churches want to talk about that. No
Yeah.
churches want to talk about the reality of of our culture and how sex is in everything that we do in our
Exactly.
lives nowadays. Nobody wants to talk about it. Like they want to keep it hush and hush. But we all know, as like I said, characteristics of human beings. When somebody tells you no, 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 what do you want to do? Oh, let me
Yes,
go
yes,
check and
yes,
see
yes.
what's.
It's
Let
it's
me see.
it's 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 human nature to rebel to anything that is structured, like
Exactly,
rules are meant to be
exactly.
broken. That is the thought, So I definitely get that.
So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, in church it could create trauma, bro. It could
Yeah.
create trauma because then you are now afraid to even speak out against anything. And I'm like I said, I'm an example of that, of somebody who I felt like I didn't deserve God's grace. I didn't deserve God's mercy because I
Yeah.
grew up as a musician, as a worship leader, as somebody who people looked up to, as the son of a worship leader and a
Yeah.
band leader and all this stuff. And I felt like I don't deserve grace because I need to
Mhm.
be perfect and I can't speak out about my sexual immoralities.
Yeah.
Because people are going to judge me and then I'm going to be damned to hell, so I cannot speak up about it and I can't say anything. And
Mhm.
it was through therapy that
Mhm.
I was able to then say, like I said, old Ruben is gone.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm not perfect.
Mhm.
I know my weaknesses, okay, and I'm trying to deal with them
Mhm.
with my help of my wife, with the help of God, with the help of my therapist, right? And there's no shame in that. And
Yeah.
there's no shame in saying God can still use me.
Yeah,
God can
exactly.
still use the broken. God can still use somebody who is not perfect,
Very
because
true.
everybody that God has used in the Bible was broken. They
Yeah.
were not perfect.
Yeah, and that's actually you're touching on, and I'm just gonna ask the question. It's like, who do you turn to if you feel like God hasn't answered your question? And that's exactly what you have to do right there. You have to look for professional help, because
Yes.
this is where it gets to the point where you're like, well, God doesn't show up, and maybe God is just waiting for you to get a therapist, to actually get somebody to vent to, so He can do His work. Because you're gonna tell me, okay, right, this has always been the God was in there doing the surgery on me. Yeah, maybe He could have used a doctor to
Sure.
make the
Yeah.
incisions
Guide
and
their
stuff like
hands,
that.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and keep them in peace and stuff so they can focus. Okay, we could take that same approach to therapy and mental health. Like maybe God, He knows, like, this person has been through so much that this person can help you, because this is the person that God placed in your life. God, I feel like God placed certain people in your life to help you out. You
Because
know,
we're all different.
exactly. But
We're all
what
different
we can
people.
all help each other though. You
Exactly.
know,
But that's what I'm saying. Can God make you from one day to the next not be an alcoholic? Yes. God has the
maybe.
power to do it. I believe God has the power to do it. Now, are we all made equal? No.
No.
So for one person to say, I not only that I have the willpower to say I don't want to do this anymore, but then I seek God's help, and with God's help, I was able to one day to the next say
Mhm.
I will no longer drink alcohol. I believe it. It can
Yeah.
happen. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
are there more people that say, Lord, I don't want to be an alcoholic anymore. I want to change,
Mhm.
but I can't do it by myself, and I
Mhm.
I I, I need some help. That's why you have help. That's why
Yeah.
you have friends, family, psychiatrists, therapists, whoever professionals that can help you in your
Mhm.
in your life to make changes, because we're not all made equal.
Yeah. Exactly.
We're
But
all different beings.
and this was like talking about it, like, okay, the biggest thing that I think people have is like, how do I tell God? Is God already knows. Okay, I'm gonna
Yes,
just
he
tell you that
does.
God already knows.
Yes, he does.
He just wants you to confess it to yourself. He wants
Pretty
you to be
much.
realistic about it, and just say it out loud. Not to get too spiritual and stuff with it, but it's true. Like, you sometimes just have to talk and be like, look, God, this is where I find myself, and this is my flaws. I do need help. Could you help me figure out what to do next? Give me a clear sign of
Right.
of what to do next. And sometimes it's like that story, of the man who prayed, and God sent like three different boats to
Oh,
come pick him
yeah.
up. You remember that? Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
that was
people.
in that Will Smith movie as well. I love that little
Yeah,
story.
yeah, I couldn't remember where it was from, but I
The
heard
pursuit of
preachers.
happiness. The
There you
pursuit of
go. And,
happiness.
and people will preach that same thing, and it is true. So many times God tried to help you out, and He tried to give it to you as clear as day, but we don't pay attention to it because we're so stuck with the toxic mentality of this and the culture of this and stuff like that we
Right.
don't see the answers right in front of us. Sometimes leaving the church helps. Sometimes speaking about it and addressing it helps. Sometimes
Yes.
speaking to God and analyzing how big of a deal this really is. Is this always happening to me, or am I exaggerating? Am I overreacting? That helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
It helps when you speak out and you talk about it. The
Well,
biggest
that's
thing,
what the Bible says. The
yeah.
Bible says that, when you confess it,
Mhm,
with your lips. Now, people take that out of context, I believe, a lot too, because they
mhm.
think, oh, you have to confess it. So that means you have to confess it to your pastor. You have to confess it. Not, no, if that's okay, if you want to confess it to your pastor and stuff like that, then by all means, bro, like, okay, go for it. But like you said, for the most part, it's just admitting it to yourself, because a lot of times we're the main ones that don't want to accept it. We're like, I
Yeah,
got this under control. I'm good. I'm good.
yeah,
It's until you fully give your struggle to God and you say, Lord, this is who I am.
yeah,
This is what I'm struggling with. This is what I'm dealing with. I am turning it over to you
yeah,
because I need your help. That's when help comes. And you need, like I said, you need to learn to then go, okay, where is this help coming from? Is this coming from a friend? Do I need to seek a therapist? Do I need to talk to somebody else? You need to figure that out for yourself, obviously.
yeah, yeah, of
Talk to God
course.
about it. But you need to confess it to yourself. It's like everything else that when we talk about, like, addicts and stuff like that, what's the first step usually is
Admitting that
acceptance.
there's, yeah, yeah,
Admitting that there's a
accepting, yeah,
problem.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, and that applies in every sense, right?
Every sense,
So
exactly.
okay, so I'm gonna ask one last question,
Yeah.
right? And then we can do, after this question, I'm gonna answer it. I have a simple answer for it, right? But
Gotcha.
and then we have closing, statements to all this, because I'm gonna wrap this up so we can kind of be able to digest what is being said here. Again, this should be helpful for a lot of people who are in ministry or who are dealing with ministry, and
Yeah.
certain they have to look up to them and whatnot. But this is one of the biggest questions even I asked myself when I was going, every time I went through certain phases of my life, whether it's suicide, whether it's family problems, whether it's job problems, career path, stuff like that. When I had
Hmm.
these weird, not weird thoughts, but these are normal thoughts, but we just address them differently. But it
Right.
says, why did God let this happen? Why did God let this happen?
Mm.
And I'm gonna answer it with this. Sometimes God let it happen because you did, because God is just like, you put yourself in that predicament, you put yourself in that situation, and it happened. Another reason why this happened is because people took the word that was supposed to be sacred, supposed to be holy, and used it for their own benefits, for their own agenda, and manipulated his words. And yes, this is the reality of it. But sometimes that is the way that they use to manipulate people. And God
Yeah.
let it happen because God let those people in charge. But you, because you should have your own convictions and stuff like that, but you let it happen as well, because it's just like, God let it happen. And there is a time where God is like, okay, you had enough. You need to wipe your ass and you need to move on.
Yeah.
But sometimes they go on, they die living as assholes, or these people who traumatize so many people. And that's because
We
nobody
we
wants
will
to
all
speak
be
out.
judged, bro. We
Yeah,
will all
okay.
be judged at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
And people don't, because too many good people stay silent. It's like what I said in the beginning.
Hmm.
This happens to them because they let themselves get manipulated. They let themselves down on their own merits. Because again, Ruben said it earlier, we put our faith too much in people. I said it in
Yes,
my
we
last
do.
podcast. I put my faith in people. I put my faith in religion. I put my faith in a certain belief system that I shouldn't have.
Organization.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I should have put my belief in God over everything else. That the
Yeah.
God that I've been taught is a God that is beyond our own expectations, our own logic, and our own limitations. All right. So, like, overall, I think God exists. I do think that God
Yeah.
is there. I think He hears us, even if we choose to acknowledge He's there. Even if we want proof, I think there's proof in everything. But I think God is in everything. Like I said in my last podcast, that He's the force to me. I think that God is in everything.
Yeah.
God is everything. It's just the way that we perceive things. And I'll let Ruben answer, why did God, let this happen?
I mean, I think I've answered that question probably throughout the whole podcast,
Yeah.
and so I'll just say it again, and I'll try to uh, just touch on the points that I've made. we live in free will, bro. And that's just the way I see it. Like, I choose to believe in a God who lets me have free will and who will judge me with my decision making when my time comes. He will judge me based on my decisions that I've made, based on my knowledge that I've attained,
Mhm.
and the decisions that I've made using that knowledge that
Mhm.
I've attained. That's what I believe. And so if I believe in a God of free will, then when I think about why did God let this happen, it is because it was supposed to happen. And like not like in a predestined way, but just because, like you said, because we do things like, okay, if I drive 100 miles per hour in very bad weather, why did I crash and die? Well,
Mhm.
because you were stupid and you were making bad decisions, you idiot. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's not, oh God, why didn't you protect me? I
Mhm.
believed in you. And God's like, well, yeah, but you're doing stupid things. So
Mhm.
like, when that's why I think it's very, very, very difficult, man. Is like, it's very serious when somebody wants to like say, okay, we're gonna pray for this brother to be healed, and then they're not healed, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, was my faith not big enough? What is that why they weren't healed? Where were you, God? I believed in you. I trusted in you. Why didn't you heal my mom? Why didn't you heal my dad? Like, you let them die. No, it was just their time. Like, it just is what it is. It is free will. Maybe your parents didn't take care of themselves physically. Maybe they
Mhm.
should have been taking better care of the temple of God and not eating, Chinese food buffets every Sunday. I mean, I can't speak, bro, because I'm freaking fat. Okay, so if at the end of the day I die because of heart issues or something, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh Lord, please heal me of this heart attack. I don't want to have heart disease and then go out and eat a Whopper. Seriously, bro? Seriously? Okay. We live in it is
Yeah.
free will, man.
Mhm.
So God lets things happen because, like you said it, bro,
Mhm.
you allowed it to happen
Yeah.
because you have every single ounce of liberty to get up and leave. If
Yeah.
you're in a bad situation, if you're in a bad marriage,
Yeah.
hey, don't let anybody tell you if you're in a bad marriage, whether you're a guy with a girl, girl with a guy, whatever. I don't care whatever you choose to
Yeah.
do. But if you're in a bad situation, if you're in a bad relationship, if you're in an abusive relationship, whether it's abusive physically, abusive sexually, abusive mentally, emotionally,
Yeah.
leave.
Mhm.
You have the power to leave. Don't let anybody tell you that, well, the Bible says, that it's against
and
divorce.
and that's
And
another thing. Hold up, yeah, I think you have to sometimes take that risk if you feel like it's going to be better for you and your family, or analyze it and make that, like, take that risk, take that risk to stand up and say it, or defend yourself.
yeah,
Again, you
of
you
course.
of course you're going to need the evidence, you're going to need certain things, right? But this, because people are too scared to talk and be like, okay, well, you can say it, I'm just going to stand behind. Because I remember in leadership, I had that one time that I spoke out to a group of other leaders, and this, my friend, which I thought, at the time, was going to have my back, and he was just like, whatever he said. And I'm like, bro, like,
I've had that
if
happen.
if
I've
you
had that happen.
if this person specifically knows what I'm talking about, I hope you see this. I'm not trying to, throw you under the bus. If you know who you are, I threw you right under the bus, but I'm not trying to. But if you're standing there, then you got run, you got ran over.
Yeah,
um
you chose to
but
stand there.
yeah, so I felt that I didn't have the backing, right? And then I had a leader come, was like, thank you for being transparent. But there still wasn't a difference made. So I was just like, I said it for nothing. And I know
You
sometimes when
you you
when we
you
speak
think
out,
that,
it does.
bro.
Yeah. So,
You
well,
think
yeah,
that.
yeah.
You
Sometimes
think that.
exactly. Sometimes we feel like we say something and it goes to deaf ears, right? Or it just goes to the wall and it comes back. It goes in one ear, one out,
And
and out the other.
for the most part it does, but think about those people, like you said, you were a leader. So
Mhm.
think about those people that you were leading,
Yeah.
those people that saw you stand up and speak up,
Mhm.
and who maybe you've changed their lives, and they're like, that's the kind of leader I want to be. I
Exactly.
want to stand up for people.
That's exactly how I see this now. Like,
Right.
I see this new platform that I have been, blessed to create, to be able to speak out on certain things that before I kept my mouth shut,
Yeah.
and now that I'm not in leadership, I kind of wish that I could have fixed it back then, but I just didn't have the right tools or the right venue to do it. And
Yeah.
now I feel like I can talk about it a lot freer, whether I take backlash or not, because I'm not afraid of,
I'm not afraid.
This guy. I'm not afraid of certain, things that are gonna be said because
Right.
the truth is here. Like the truth is right here. What we're talking, like it's live for us now, but when this podcast goes out, I hope it could go to the masses. I hope it can reach out to certain people. Maybe we didn't answer all the questions. Maybe we didn't. We weren't.
And if we didn't
Yeah,
reach out to us,
yeah.
whether it's on the comment section
Exactly.
or
Like I'm always open, bro. Like I'm always open. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me and just call me Yoyo. I have an Instagram. You can probably reach me there. You can text me, but I'm not gonna give you my number here. If you could DM me on Instagram, I'll give you my number and stuff. We could talk about it. Don't try to take me out on a date. Okay, chill out. I have to get to know you first. But yeah, like I'm so like if you want to make a comment in the comment section, do it, and then we'll get to talking and we'll find a way to speak about these things that we feel. Because look, recently I just spoke to this guy. It was on YouTube, right? I was
yeah.
making a joke with this YouTube channel that I follow, and I was just like, I apologize for not being here for your videos and I should be here. And I was like, I'm sorry I let you down. And then this guy was like, you don't need to apologize. And I'm like, oh, I was just kidding, but and then he got real with me. And
Yeah.
then I was like, no, I have to be smart with what I say here.
Right.
And
Right.
I was like, I'm not, I don't want him to feel like I'm gonna throw it back in his face, because he's just everything he just told me, he was being honest and he was going
Right.
through a lot. And I'm like, look, I've been through my fair share of things and you probably done it longer than me, but I just hope that you're okay. I truly hope that even though you've been through this since you were a kid, I hope that things look better for you. And I'm happy to say that you're still here, that you're
Yeah.
still trying. And I was like, whatever you do, keep going forward, and I try to give him some kind of motivation.
Sure.
But
Sure.
like, but for an instant, I thought like a human. I was just like, this dude is just trying to, I was just making a joke and he didn't like my joke. He didn't appreciate my joke, of what I said. But it's okay, because sometimes people are not going to understand what you're saying. People are not
Exactly.
going to get the context of how you're saying it or where you come from. I consider myself a believer to a certain degree, of who God really is. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, there's a big difference in the way we view things and how we call it ourselves. But a title is just the title until that title no longer works. You know what I
Sure.
mean? It's just like for me, like every time when I was in leadership, I always said that the title means nothing to me, but the position that I have means that I can do so much more. And I did what I could when I did it. And then when I left it, you know, I had to rethink things, because like I said in my pack, I keep referring to the other one, that I felt toxic. I felt like I was becoming a different person, and I
Yeah.
had to push it all away to rethink my life and find myself. And that's where I'm doing right now. That's what I'm doing now. I'm finding my
Yeah.
footing in these questions and these answers. And these answers probably don't work for everybody,
No.
but this is putting it out
But
there for
that's
those.
the point.
Yeah,
That's the
that's
point.
putting it out there for people to start to understand, like sowing that seed, like you said earlier, right? Sowing that seed and seeing what it comes, like what comes into fruition. So when we
Yeah,
reap
that
what
is
we
literally the
sowed,
point.
yeah, when we reap what we sow, we're gonna see the benefit of having this platform. And
Right.
I thank Ruben, because Ruben, me and him talked about it, and I was like trying to figure out like what was the next topic, and I was like, I don't want to attack religion, but I
Right.
do want to address certain things that
Certain
we
things, issues with
need to
religion.
address.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's always going to be that tie, because everywhere I go, everything it comes to, it always going to go back to where I came from. You know?
Well, you said it perfectly in your first podcast, bro, that, um, religion in its pure itself can heal the world,
Yeah,
but it can also create wars.
yeah,
It is also what, so at the end of the day, that's the reason why, yeah, there may be a lot of things wrong in my eyes with religious organizations and
yeah,
religion in general, but I'm still part of one. I'm still part
yeah.
of a religious organization because I believe that there's a lot of good that can still be done. We may be on sort of different parts of our spiritual journeys, right?
Mhm.
Like I said, we believe in the same God, but um, yeah, I mean, they're just, to me, God is just so big that I'm like, man, I can never even fully understand who God is. I'm just gonna focus on being a good person, on teaching my kids to be good people, teaching my kids to believe in God, and to make decisions for themselves also. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
hey, don't take my word for it. Research. go find out for yourself. Like, don't just take my word. If you ask me,
Yeah.
Dad, do you think that getting the tattoo is a sin? And I go, well, I maybe don't believe that tattoos are a sin. I look at it more of a cultural, because I've with the way that I grew up, not
Yeah.
necessarily in a sinful nature.
Mhm.
Just I don't believe that if I want a professional looking job, that I'm gonna get tattoos all over my face. But nowadays you can be a CEO and have tattoos all over your face. I don't
Yeah.
know, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So look it up for
Yeah.
yourself. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you my point of view.
That's true. And that's true. And I want to end it on that point,
Yeah, man.
that, some people, like you said earlier, some people enjoy church. They love the fellowship, the bond with people. And some people miss that. Their soul needs that, to have that love, worship, and serve together thing. But sometimes it comes with a cost.
It
It
does. It
comes with a
does.
mental cost, a physical cost, an emotional cost. But sometimes there is no cost. Sometimes it's just a way to help yourself, like how to achieve certain things, in your life. But sometimes, you know sometimes when certain things happen to you, the higher ups feel like it's not their problem. They're not going to address it. So you have to learn to address certain things that are not in those people's minds or
Or
in
even or even
their
then,
capacity.
let's word it differently.
Mhm.
You need to learn how to stand up for yourself.
Okay, yeah, of course, yes.
So you know what I mean?
I definitely agree with you that you
So
should
so
learn how to stand up for yourself and
I
speak for
think a lot
yourself.
of exactly at the end of the day, it's not about speaking up against authority and down
Yeah.
with this and that. No, it's about standing up for yourself. It's
Yeah.
about you being firm in your beliefs. And if somebody is insulting who you are and is trying to cause damage to you and your family or your mental health or your spiritual well-being,
Mhm.
you need to stand up for yourself and say, this is not where I need to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand up for myself and I'm going to make it known that this is what's happening to me so that it doesn't happen to somebody else, so that
Yeah.
other people can then go, wait, he stood up for himself. I'm going to stand up for myself too. Because when you stay quiet, it's like you said earlier in that quote, I forgot exactly how you said it, but when you stay quiet,
Mhm.
okay, you have some responsibility then for other people going through the same thing you did because
Yeah.
you chose to not stand up and say something about it.
Yeah.
But when you stand up for yourself, other people will see that courage in you and
Yeah.
then will go, I want to stand up for yourself. Be smart about it.
Yeah.
Be careful with your words.
Educate yourself.
Educate yourself exactly,
Yeah.
but stand up for yourself
Yeah.
and stand up to your leaders whenever you feel like they are not leading you in the correct path.
Yeah.
And if it's time for
Don't
you to
rebel
leave,
against them. It's
right,
speak
right.
up. Speak
Speak
up.
up.
Yeah.
Exactly. Don't rebel. I'm not talking about like, hey,
Yeah.
you need to stop. No,
Yeah. Voice your
you need
opinion.
to voice your opinion. You need to speak who you are. And if it's time for you to leave, then it's time for you to leave.
Yeah.
Right. But you never know that moment of you speaking up and saying, I don't agree with this. I don't
Mhm.
agree with this way that we've done things for 100 years. I think it's time to change it.
Mhm.
You never know. It could cause that change. It
Yeah,
could cause that be like, oh,
it's like
man.
I was talking, to Richie about it. It could
Yeah.
cause a ripple effect, in certain
Hmm.
things, because I have friends that believe that kind of, that there's a domino effect in church that can go one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
And it could start something, and it could be better or it could be worse, because let's say when a tsunami hits, like, let's say an asteroid hit off the coast of something, and it just starts a big wave. That's not
Right.
exactly what we want to do, because that causes destruction.
It
What we
does.
want to
Exactly.
cause is like a wave, so we could change the way we see things. It's so we can see the hand of God actually working. We have to work together, speak out together, but and do this in a togetherness, because the culture we live in, that is another thing that is like, you have to we there's so much animosity in between each other. They're like, we're better than you, we're better. It shouldn't be that kind of culture. It should be
Right.
togetherness. It should be community, serving each other, serving each other's help, like and at the end, right, at the end, we should all look for the betterment of ourselves, rather than everybody like just be like, well, I'm sacrificing so much for them. Like, okay, if you can't do it, then don't do it. Like, if you can help somebody, help them, stand up with them. If you need to go talk to your pastor about something you both are concerned with, then do it. Don't be
Right.
afraid to step out of your comfort zone and speak. It helps to speak up and speak out. If you don't do it, then you're just like every other person. And that quote that you were saying is that the world suffers a lot, not because of the violence of bad people, but the silence of the good people. So if
There you
you
go.
feel like you were a good person, stop being quiet. I'm not telling you to to riot and bash the
No.
church and start talking crap about the church and stuff like that. Because again, at one point I felt that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't feel that way anymore. The only way that I can help these people that I've come from is to address
Seth
it.
Rollins. You were like Seth Rollins. Let it
burn it down. Yeah.
Burn it down. That's it.
Yeah. So like I wanted to do that. Like I wanted to,
right.
But I was like, no, because this I still have friends in the church that I grew up in. I still have friends that I want to encourage. I just don't want them to be looking out, for me and be like, you need to come back to God because of this and that. And I'm like,
right.
I didn't lose God, I just don't look at him the same. So chill out, But anyways,
so in my closing remark, this is what I want to say.
Mhm.
In my closing remark, this is what I want to say. We have to remember, one, as leaders, you have to remember that you are not the boss. You are serving.
Exactly.
You are serving those under you.
Amen.
As people that are looking to your leader, remember they are serving you.
Mhm.
They don't know what direction to go to if you don't speak up.
Yeah.
If you don't say, hi, leader, we believe that the direction you're going is not being beneficial to the outcome of everybody.
Mhm.
But we forget the power you have as the people. I saw a meme, I've seen it many times, where it's got the leader hanging off of a ledge on like a piece of board or something. And then you have like all the people that are being led, they're standing on that same board holding him up, knowing that if all of a sudden they all walk away, he falls, right? Yeah. So you have a power as people to then say, hey, you are supposed to be serving us and we don't feel like you are serving us in the correct way. So don't be afraid to speak up. But once again, if you're the one that feels like you're not being served in the proper way, but all the other 9 feel okay, everything's fine, well, then maybe it's time for you to look, for something different, something else, right? But you have to, as a leader, you cannot sit here and be like, well, I'm the boss and I'm gonna do things my way. Respect the people that speak up because they're telling you for a reason. Yeah. And learn how to listen and say, okay, well, all right, let me take that into account because you're not perfect. So there may be things that you need to change. I've had to do that many times. I've done that, and being a music director, there were things that I was doing the wrong way, and it took people telling me like, hey, Ruben, I don't think you should be doing this. That I was like, let me rethink this, man. You're right. You're right. I shouldn't be doing it this way. Yeah. So
and it helped. Yeah, exactly. Speaking out actually helps, the leaders as well address it to be better leaders stuff. There's times, again, like I said in the beginning, that things are not going to change, right? No. You have to change your perspective and you have to change the way you're doing things. Now, I was folding paper. I know if you guys saw that. I wasn't trying to be rude or anything. It's just, this is a thing that I used as what's called object lesson, in church. Nice. Right, that this starting point, this is you, right? Yeah. Sometimes you're trying to lead from back here to the people up here, right? And that doesn't always work because people are not listening to you. Sometimes people try to lead like this, and the weight of all these people are on you, and you don't get anywhere. Well, we have to start, and you can't do this either, where you're the one who is screaming at the people, trying to tell them. I know it says free meal, don't look at that. But it says, like it's like you're up here and you're trying to, you put so much pressure on people. The leader leads like this. You go forward, they're following you behind you. You know what I mean? Like, do you get me? You know what I'm saying? This way, you can't do it from all the way in the back of the line. You can't do it like this where you feel the pressure. You can't do it like this where you are the pressure. You have to do it this way where you're leading the people to a better tomorrow, a better version of you. So I say, let's change everything that we've seen, right? Let's change that. Let's focus on helping people. And it all starts from ourselves, from the inside, from the great late Michael Jackson, right? He said, I'm looking at the man in the mirror and I want to start by changing,
I'm looking at the man in the mirror. Hey, get it?
I'm asking him to change his ways. And no machine could be any clearer.
If you want to make a world a better place, you better look at yourself and make a change.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, dude. I love that. That's so
I
funny.
love that
It's
song. It's one
so
of my favorite songs.
and we just threw it out there. It's funny, but it makes sense. You know, you have to work within yourself first,
Yeah.
and then you can go forward, right? So
That
I
could
want,
totally be a Christian song.
yeah, right. It totally can. But if anybody who's listening to this, if anybody could benefit from this, I hope that this helps you.
Me
Again,
too.
don't misconstrue our words or our advice. This is us on our personal opinions and perspectives that we're trying to
Mm-hmm.
help out, and we're trying to speak out for people who can't, you know,
Yep.
or who are too afraid to do it. And if we're speaking to you, you know, I hope you guys, you know, we love you guys, and we hope you guys know that you're not alone. If you need to reach out to Ruben or to me, I'll leave our things at the bottom of the video description.
Yeah,
I'll
for
leave you
sure.
our
For sure.
information so you guys can contact us and like look for us and stuff like that. I don't think I'm done talking about this conversation. I
Oh
think
man,
that
there needs to
there's
be like a part two of this, and we like maybe
yeah,
bring
there's like
somebody else into this.
there's so many parts to these, you know, that podcast that I have been, you know, I've just started. This is episode 3, and this is, again, this is church over me, myself, and I, and that's just the way that we see it. We don't have to see it like that anymore. I just
Right.
want, like, I know that this probably didn't change everybody's life, but I hope it can change somebody's perspective, and you can start seeing it a little bit differently and see what you can do, you know.
Yeah.
And this is how I'm gonna end it. I'm like, for a better tomorrow, stay strong,
Best
life
they
is
can.
good, and it will be better. Let's end it right there. Right. Thank you
Yes.
guys. Thank you, Ruben. See you guys next time.